Hey everybody, welcome back to the vlog. Thank you so much for joining me once again for tea time. Today we have a little bit of misty morning, not much left. So good. It's a bright tea, really nice in the morning. You guys asked me for my teas. I made them, I put them together for you. They're under the brand called Dark Moon Teas. You go to darkmoonteas.com or you can go over to my website, JCristina.com. Go check them out. Pick them up if you like them. Anyway, so today is going to be a Sony day. A7s III, guys. A7s III. A lot of you have been looking for this camera for years now, and it was a debate going back and forth. Will they be coming out with like an A9s, or is it going to actually be called an A7s III? And we kind of went back and forth. They ended up going with the name of A7s III. And it looks pretty amazing, guys. It looks really quite good. I want to say one thing before I go into the specs and how it actually was released in comparison to all of the rumors and whatnot. Before I get into that, I want to say that some of you guys have been asking me in the comment area below most of my videos, do I have any more of those PRTs left, the photo reference tool? It's like, I call it a gray card on crack. It looks like this. So if you see them over on Amazon, you'll see it looking like this, or on B&H Photo and Video, or on my website. It looks like this, and on the back, you can see this card. Anyways, we got more in. It was weeks. And it was a long period of time for us to be out because we've had them for a couple of years now, year and a half, 2 years now, and we haven't had any outages, let's say, any shortages. And there was this run up once this pandemic hit, and a lot of people were using a lot of these type of gray cards inside their studio doing product shots and whatnot. So there was a run on these, and they're back. All right. So there's a big batch that went into Amazon. They should be arriving within the next couple of days. We have thousands here now at the warehouse where I am. And then also B&H Photo has them also. I just want to let you know, some people were looking for them. Yes, they are back. Basically what this is, it's a gray card. All right, you can dial in your gray, neutralize your image, doesn't matter if it's video or photo, and then you can use this area right here, these dark strips, to get your contrast just right, and then there's some other just sample colors here. And on the back is your dual axis color control. This is what you use for dialing in your warm to cool colors. You just don't use Calvin and just slide your bar, over to yellow, and then all of a sudden you think that it's warm. No, everyone's now jaundice. Anyways, this takes into consideration not only yellow to cyan, but also your tint, which is very important, which is your green to magenta. You need to balance these things to be able to get a good warming image or a nice cooling image. Anyways, that's what this does. If you didn't know, now you know, and they're back in stock. So go check them out. They are available once again. Thank God. It was quite some time. We had issues with manufacturing because there was a lot of people in the plants that were just out of work due to COVID-19. Anyways, that being said, into the Sony A7s III. I want to just tell you, where has this camera come from? Now remember, Trevor Current and myself used to go to many different events, and we would cover the events through Digital Photography Cafe. All right. And back in, I think it was 2014, the A7s was announced. And that camera was really unbelievable for video production. Now remember, that was back in 2014. We are now 2020. Keep that in mind. Now the specs back then were a 12.2 megapixel sensor, CMOS sensor, that would be able to capture 4K, which was amazing at that time. Remember, this is 2014. Also, at the time, the S, when they put the S in the nomenclature, it was all about sensitivity. That was the whole idea behind it, making a camera or a sensor very sensitive, so it would be able to capture really good images in low light. And that's what it did. It was a 50 ISO all the way up to 409,600 ISO, which was unheard of at the time. So it did a really good job. I personally think the #1 most sensitive full frame camera, doesn't matter if it was mirrorless or mirrored, on the market at the time. and they did an amazing job. It also captured 1080p, I think it was 420, and they did 4K at 422 external, all right, not internal, but external. And of course, they provided Sony's S-Log2 at the time, which was really good because it made for an awesome video capturing device, okay? Now fast forward that to 2020, and we're just going to take a look at these key features that they gave us in the press release as of yesterday and just go over them. Now, what they've done here is they have released the camera once again with a 12 megapixel sensor, the same size sensor as it was 6 years ago. All right, so this time it is a 12.1 instead of a 12.2. Those are just semantics. It doesn't really matter. It is a brand new BSI, backside illuminated sensor. So this is a new sensor. Just because it's the same megapixels, it doesn't mean it's the same sensor, because it is absolutely not. Now, once again, the capturing range is now 40 ISO up to 409,600. Sounds familiar, right? So we have basically the same amount, let's say, of that extended ISO, but you're talking about a brand new sensor that is highly sensitive. And I believe the dynamic range is like 15 stops, which is absolutely, if you think about it, unbelievable, right? That is really quite amazing. Also, what they indicated was the video capture on here. As you can remember, with the A7s, you would have to capture 4K externally. Well, of course, now you can capture 4K, but not 420, you're capturing 422, and that is internal to the camera, and that is at all the way up to 120p. So that is really nice. So you're going to have your 4K at 120p, 10-bit, 422, H.265, yada, yada, yada. A really, really good 4K video, and that is to be expected. Also, what you'll be able to do is output 4K 60p, but at 16-bit RAW, guys, through the HDMI port. 16-bit RAW. We're not talking about 8-bit, 10-bit, 12-bit. We're talking 16-bit. That is unbelievable. So if someone wants to hook up an external recorder, they would be able to get basically the best quality video, 4K video, that you're going to find. The camera also has 759 points of autofocus. That is phase detection points of autofocus. That is covering 92% of the full frame, which is nice. Also, they're saying that it has that enhanced real-time IAF, where it's tracking eyes. That is something that they've done a lot of work on, and I think that Sony really does it fantastically. I would say that it's every bit as good, sometimes even better, than what Canon does with their dual pixel AF. Now Canon has dual pixel AF2, which is also unbelievable. So I would say they're pretty much on par. They do an amazing job as far as tracking eyes, tracking faces, in comparison to every other brand on the market, okay? Really, really good stuff. Also, they're providing 5-axis in-body image stabilization. You know I don't like IBIS, but it is what it is. They do provide it, which is great, especially if you're gonna be running and gunning, hand-holding and whatnot. I just haven't liked IBIS in most cameras that are full frame. Now, does IBIS work fantastic on a Micro Four Thirds? Absolutely. Why? Because the sensor is this big, so to jog that thing around there really doesn't have a lot of work to do there. The camera doesn't need to process a lot and do a lot of work. Whereas if you have a full frame and that's jogging around in there, that's when you start getting this jello stuff that we see in the background where things are moving. Not the subject as much, but the corners, you know, the backside of things, and you'll start seeing that jello where things are just kind of mushing around. I hate that. Okay, I would rather have stuff a little bit jittery and then fix it in post-production than this warpy kind of crap that you can't fix. That's just my opinion, all right? Don't kill me, all right? Don't kill the messenger. I'm just giving you my opinion. If you love IBIS, fantastic, Okay. Anyways, it does have 5-axis of image stabilization, which is fantastic. Also, the OLED EVF. You know, we've been talking about EVFs, the whole idea of augmented reality and having a really good solid EVF that has no blackout and has a ton of megapixels in there, so it looks like real, okay? Like an OVF, like you're looking out the lens, but as an augmented reality, like with a, let's say a HUD. So you have your heads-up display in your eye, you can see everything, and then as you make modifications to the camera setting, what you change it to is like WYSIWYG out that EVF. So everything that you see is exactly what you get when you pull the trigger. So EVFs are awesome when they're done properly, and this thing I'm reading has 9.44 million dots. I've never heard of that before, okay? I think the most EVF I've heard was like 3.8 or something. I think it was under 4 million dots of resolution. This thing has 9.4 million dots of resolution. That's unbelievable. If the refresh rate is at 120 frames per second to 240 frames per second with almost zero blackout, this is going to be amazing to look through. All right, that's my opinion. Okay, I don't know. Obviously, I haven't seen it yet. I haven't held it yet, but I kind of miss the days when we used to go and cover these events, because I would have handheld this on the announcement date. Anyways, yeah, have like just not to dwell on that. Anyway, so COVID, right? COVID. Now, 10 frames per second, continuous shooting. That's what you're going to be able to get out of this camera. So is it super fast? No, but at 10 frames per second, it is right where it should be for this type of camera. Now, I'm going to get into what type of camera I think this is in just a minute. So just bear in mind, 10 FPS is good enough. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. Also, instead of having 2 card slots in this camera that are variable speed, some camera manufacturers do it, and in some cameras they have it where they have UHS 1 and you have UHS 2, and you just, no, right? You need high speed 2, or whatever you're going to put in there, put 2 of the exact same cards. And that's exactly what Sony did here. They have dual CFexpress Type A cards in there. So you're getting high speed. My understanding is you can use regular SD cards in it also, but if you have the brand new cha-chang CFexpress Type A's, you can use those for high speed capturing. Now, let's just talk a little bit about what this camera is and some of the points that they made during the announcement, which I thought was kind of telling to what they were going for here. What they said was, because there was a lot of questions on the 12.1 megapixel sensor, why did they go that route? Why did they go with 4K and not 8K like Canon did and whatnot? So what they said was there was 3 reasons. Number 1, they wanted to make the absolute best, highest quality 4K video production. That is full readout with no pixel binning and absolutely no crop. All right, that's what they were going for. That's number 1. Number 2, they wanted a sensor or a camera that had the highest possible dynamic range with an ISO from 40 all the way up to 409,600. Okay, basically you're seeing in the dark. You probably see better through the EVF than with your eyes. That's how sensitive this sensor is. Also, wanted the scan rate at twice the speed as before, which they accomplished, and also 3 times less rolling shutter. Once again, rolling shutter is always an issue as there's fast moving objects. You start getting that rolling shutter where you start getting that jello effect, okay? So the faster that you can read and write this data, the less rolling shutter you're going to have. Eventually we'll have a global shutter, whereas we're writing the data all pixels at once instead of scanning across the sensor and writing in a scanning motion. That's how you get that jello effect or that rolling shutter. Eventually that global shutter will do this. Frame by frame by frame by frame. 24, 60, 120 frames, 240 frames, whatever it is, but it's going to be frame by frame by frame. So it's all those megapixels, all those millions of pixels written immediately, simultaneously, not scanned and written. We didn't get there yet, but they're getting close with this 3 times less rolling shutter, because that means that they're able to write this data quicker. How do they do that? Well, they do that by only providing 12 megapixels, okay? Canon is doing 45 megapixels and giving people 8K, right? You need all those megapixels to be able to do 8K. Sony said, we're not going to do 8K. We're going to do 4K, but we're going to do it just spot on, right? Amazing 4K. And that's what they're doing here, right? Canon just shot for the moon with their 8K, and now the thing is basically combusting and catching on fire, all right? We said that that was going to happen, and it is happening. There's overheating that is just inevitable, guys. Inevitable. If you don't have a fan in these things, they're going to overheat. So what Sony did here is they did internal cooling with no ducting, okay? That's it. Internal cooling with no ducting. They basically say it's a passive heat transfer within the camera, all right? They're dissipating the heat throughout the camera away from the sensor, okay? Doing that is not always just for not having the camera shut off, but providing less noise. The hotter the sensor gets, the more noise you end up with, all right? This is just it. When sensors heat up, they don't capture as well as when they're cool, all right? So, that being said, this was the argument behind using a 12 megapixel sensor, which is the same size as they did in 2014, 6 years ago. There's a lot of people out there that are kind of upset about it because they wanted them to equal Canon when it came to 8K. They didn't know how they were going to get there, but they wanted it to happen. And since it hasn't, they just look at it as just more of the same. Yes, it's better. And is it 6 years better from 2014 to now? Okay. Yes, it is. This is going to be an absolute beast of a video capture device. And this is where I come full circle. This camera, the A7s III, is not a photo camera. That's why I didn't care that it did 10 frames per second. I don't care if it did 4.5 frames per second, because it doesn't matter. No one's going to use this at $3.5 to $4 grand as a camera. That's not what its purpose is. Okay, Sony even said the largest image you're going to be able to get out of it is like 13 by whatever, 13 by 18, 13 by 17, whatever. That's it. That's where you're at with your 12 megapixels. So this is a purpose-built video camera. All right, the Sony A7s III is a purpose-built video camera. That is it. All right, so all the people that want to compare it to a Canon R5 or something, it's not. The Canon R5 was built as a hybrid photo video camera, all right? This camera was built as a purpose-built video camera. 2 different use cases, right? Do you want to do video? Do you want to do photo? If I'm going to be doing high-end video, I would most likely look into the Sony A7s III. Why? Dynamic range off the chart. Eye tracking is going to be unbelievable. All right. You're going to have this really good high quality video output. You don't have to worry about it overheating. You don't have a 30-minute time limit, as they say. It's like an hour. You can record for like an hour or more with this Sony A7s III. And that is really good if you're capturing, let's say, a wedding or some type of event, okay? And you don't want to spend money on like a C series, all right, which costs 3 times, some of them, or 2 times as much as this camera does, okay? And you want something smaller, compact, lightweight, and still weather resistant. The C series is not. Why? Because it has an inlet and it has an exhaust, where it kind of blows air in and out, cools the interiors. Some people will say, hey, wait. Panasonic has a fan in their S series, and they are weather sealed. Okay. I'll give it to you. All right, that is absolutely the case. And I think, personally, I think that Canon should have done the exact same thing with their R5. If they want to shoot for the moon and go for 8K, like they did way back in the day with the 5D Mark II, where it was this revolution, if they wanted to make this revolutionary camera, they should have made it like that and threw a fan in it. That's my personal opinion. But I regress. As far as this camera goes, the A7s III looks to be amazing, but understand that it is a purpose-built camera for video production. And if you are a photographer that wants to capture stills, this is most likely not going to be your camera with a 12.1 megapixel sensor. Unless 12 megapixels is enough and you are going to be capturing images in the dark of night. Okay? That's it. I think that it would be perfect if you were, let's say, an astro photographer, or maybe you're doing really low light events and 13-inch by whatever is good enough. Okay? 12 megapixels will be perfect for what you're doing. And 10 FPS, like I said before, is pretty quick. All right. So anyways, guys, these are my thoughts on it. I want to hear your thoughts. Are you disappointed by this camera like a lot of people were that I'm reading in the comments? Or are you just elated that this camera is out now and that you can go and pick it up? How do you stand on it? You know, are you that person that will be getting the A7s III, or will you be waiting to see what Sony does with their A9? I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think. Also, do you think that this camera, like I said, is a purpose-built camera for video? Do you think that this is a video camera and not a quote-unquote hybrid photo video camera like we see what Canon is making? All right. And finally, how do you think that they compare the A7s III in comparison to a Canon R5? A lot of people are going to be comparing these cameras side by side and saying, you know, which one is a better camera? I want to know what you think. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this content. If you have, throw me a thumbs up. That would be absolutely stellar. And don't forget to smash that subscribe button so you can get all my content when it becomes available. And click the bell icon right up here, so when it is available, you will be notified of it. And finally, head over to my website, JCristina.com, where you can find all the photography tools I've invented for you and me over the years, and hopefully there's something there that you might like. And if there is, please pick it up and support me. That's it, guys. I'm out of here for yet another vlog. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe and stay healthy.